Check. Peace. Yo, could y'all hear me clear? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know if y'all can hear me clear. Just let me know so that yeah, peace. Excellent. Yeah, it's good to see y'all. Good, good, Caleb. It's good to see y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Just had some things on my mind. So I just randomly come on here to share. So today is the 3rd of November, and 3 in our language of supreme mathematics, 3 represents understanding. So I was going to build a little bit on understanding. Good. So understanding represents the number 3 because prior to us being able to understand anything, we have to have a degree of knowledge and wisdom. Now, why do I say that? Not because it's some expected standard or some religious concept that people need to believe and follow. That is the natural order of things. To say that understanding is the 3rd step in terms of a person's growth and development is just based upon observing natural processes. What do I mean by that? To understand is to see things for what they are, not what they appear to be. Understanding is also having a clear mental picture. It's being able to comprehend something. How many times have you strived to explain something to someone and they just don't get it? I don't care what kind of picture you paint. I don't care how many words you use. I don't care if you show that person because they're a kinesthetic learner. You show them hands on how to do something and they just don't get it. They don't understand. That is because they don't have the knowledge and the wisdom. A lot of times when we're striving to get someone to understand something, we overlook the fact that we may need to emphasize knowledge first, as well as wisdom to help scaffold them or help them arrive to an understanding or to get a clear mental picture of what it is we're striving to communicate. If a person doesn't know something, how can they possibly understand it? It's impossible. So, a lot of times, if a person isn't getting something, there is some disconnect between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom not just being words and actions, but wisdom being discernment or right judgment. There's some disparity there when it comes to a personally rightly judging what it is that you're sharing, as well as them having a proper foundation or knowledge to even grasp what it is you're striving to give them a clear mental picture of. So let me give you an example. Sometimes you have people who come from religious communities, and that religious community by nature is very prejudiced. They only learn what their book says. They don't congregate with people who are of a different faith. They don't even invest time in learning about other people's perspectives. All they want to know is what they believe in. So when they come in contact with people who have a different belief system or a different faith, a lot of times that person from a different faith or belief system may be striving to communicate something to this religious person, and they just don't get the picture. They don't understand. And sometimes it's frustrating. But a part of that frustration is the fact that this person that you're striving to engage, they don't have no knowledge of what you're talking about, first of all. And if they don't know what you're talking about, how is it possible for them to rightly discern or judge what it is that you even saying? They don't have the capacity. So sometimes the approach in terms of striving to draw some clear mental picture for people is not even to focus on the picture, but to have an engagement or discussion on the tools that are required to even draw the picture, the knowledge and the wisdom. To even engage a person to find out what their foundation is. So, for example, I may come in contact with a person that they may be Christian and they don't study anything else. If you ask them about Judaism, or if you ask them about Hebrew Israelites, if you ask them about Islam, if you even ask them about Jehovah's Witnesses, they may not know nothing about it. So how is it possible to even get them to see what you're saying if they ain't even got that foundation? So when I come in contact with people, I strive to first get a sense of what it is that they know before I start talking about anything. Because number one, you alleviate the stress and the frustration, and you're much more intentional and calculated in terms of the content that you're striving to share with people. You have a greater sense of what has value to this person and what they're going to be able to connect with. In other words, if I meet a person like this and I ask them, like, have you ever been to the Kingdom Hall before? And they say no. I know that, okay, that is a territory that they have never even encountered. That's uncharted terrain for them. So I'm not going to have a whole bunch of conversation about that uncharted terrain because they have no knowledge of that. Right? Now, if I ask them, well, have you ever been to like a Pentecostal church? This person may be Baptist, they may be Methodist, but then they may say, well, yeah, I've been to a Pentecostal church before. Now we got some commonality. Now we both have a foundation that we share that we can build upon. So now I may have more of a discussion with them about that. Well, what was your experience there? And then I may share my own experience. I remember I went to one time and it was lit. It's a lot different than a Baptist church or a Methodist church or anything like that. It's more participatory. It's more engaging. Those people in there playing wash tubs. The pastor had a necklace with a whistle and was marching around the church and they were that much into it. And this is pretty different than other spaces I've been in. And then they may share, oh yeah, I've been to a space like that before. Oh yeah. But now we're having a conversation. Now, not only do we have a similar experience in terms of knowledge as a base, that becomes the starting place or the starting point that we can build upon. which means now we can discuss wisdom. Now we can talk about what we rightly discerned or judged being in those spaces. Things that we may see of value, things that we may not see as value, but we can have that type of discussion, which leads to an understanding. Because I may say, well, knowing that this person may be coming from a Methodist background, I may say, well, that was a nice experience, you know, but I think I'm a little bit more orientated around the biblical teaching. I like the more study of the word, and this person may agree because their faith or their house of worship may be more orientated that way. So now we're both rightly judging that experience from a perspective that we're seeing what we think is of value and what we may not think as is of value. But at the same time, we could also discuss maybe that may be of value to other people because they may not have those type of spaces to congregate or to gather with others that share the same faith. And they're excited and joyous about being in those kind of environments. So we can have that discussion. But it starts off with knowledge. You got to really get a good assessment of what a person knows before you can engage with them in some type of conversation about experiences that lead to understanding. And that's just basic 1, 2, and 3. That ain't something a person got to believe. All of you that's listening to me right now, that ain't something that you got to believe or go along with. We're going to encounter what I just explained just through natural life processes. You're going to encounter people all of the time where you have to find out what is a foundation or something that we share in common that we can base our interaction upon. There has to be some common ground. And from that common ground, how can we utilize this to discuss life experiences and things that we've encountered where we rightly judged based on what it is that we know that's in common? And how can we see this? Sometimes you may be seeing something through a totally different perspective from a person that's sharing their life experience with you. But understanding comes in its own good time. Sometimes you may be having a conversation with somebody and you really don't understand what they're saying right now, but in hindsight or later on, you're sitting there thinking about the conversation that you had, and now it has a certain degree of value to it because it's like a light bulb goes off. I got it now. Understanding is also what we refer to as the best part. So what's the best part of that? The best part of understanding is the fact that it's a composite of knowledge and wisdom. It's a combination of what you know and what you experience. Seen and lived in the form of 3 dimensions, lived out in this space. That's the best part of it. We also say that understanding is symbolic to the child because the child is the best part of the parents. The child is the evidence that the parents were here. It's the continuity of consciousness. It's the continuity of experience. It's the composite. A child is the composite of knowledge and wisdom. Because without a child, that knowledge is not sustainable. It does not continue. Without a child, wisdom cannot be passed on to the next generation. So a child, when we say understanding is a clear mental picture or seeing things for what they are, not what they appear to be, a child represents the best part of that in physical form. A child is evidence of knowledge and wisdom. So as a 5%, that's one of the reasons that our movement has always been youth-centric. Our target demographic have always been the youth because we've always instinctively understood that the children are the best part. Any movement that you see also understands it, but sometimes movements may not focus on the youth as the primary demographic, with being able to share that knowledge and wisdom to continue the sustainability of what they see as values and what they see as principles. In other words, I was just doing a presentation recently, and one of the things that I was sharing is when you look at, particularly here in America, any movement that you're talking about, whether it's the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, any movement that you're talking about in this country was always led by youth. A lot of the think tanks were in higher education or in educational spaces, organized by youth. And any movement, for it to be sustainable, for it to be here, for it to really manifest true value, it has to be manifested through the younger generation. True indeed. Education, a lot of times, is not focused on the growth and development of the youth. It's focused on indoctrination. It's focused on crafting children into cogs to put into a machine. Education comes from the Latin root educare ducere, which means to draw out or to lead out. True education is a process of striving to draw out of a person the infinite potential that already is there, by guiding them along an individual educational plan, in a sense, where not only are you exposing children to things that they should learn across the board, generally speaking, such as financial literacy, such as holistic healthcare, how to take care of themselves and the body system, science, things like that. But you also have to cultivate or to draw out or to lead out of them those gifts and talents that are already there. But you can only do that if you see them. That goes back to understanding, having a clear mental picture. You have to see them. And when you see them, that means that you have the knowledge as well as the wisdom to be able to draw out or to lead out those qualities that are there that you see. So you may look at a child, they may be 4 years old, and it's like, wow, they just have a certain gift for art. You may see another one, and it's like, wow, they love being out in nature. They have a gift for gardening or farming. Some are very loquacious. They love to speak and communicate. So they have a gift for that. They're charismatic at 4. But when you see that, you have to be able to create resources and help them develop those type of gifts. That's part of the educational process, and that oftentimes is not what is going on. In addition to recognizing those gifts that are in children, it's also necessary to be able to create resources that challenges their growth and development as well. We all come into this physical plane with gifts and things that we got to work at. Things that come easy and things that come difficult. In terms of a Western thinking, most people are born and they are under the impression that they're born into a world of sin. They all fall short of the glory of God. They're all gonna, they're just only human. All of these various different ideas that disrupts and limits their true infinite potential or the greatness that they were actually fashioned in. So things that they do easy, they may just focus on doing that. If they're kinesthetic learners and they really learn good with hands on, they may just stay over there. And then when it comes to learning from just listening or observing things, they may say, I can't do that. And then you have adults that reinforce that. Oh, they can't do that. What? That's just evidence of something that they need to work on. And you have to put the resources around them to help develop those particular skill sets that don't come as easy. We're all born into this physical plane with a leaning. Part of our growth and development process is to bring balance to who and what we infinitely are. And because we're in this physical form, that balance has challenges that we're going to constantly go through in life experiences in order to bring that balance. That's the nature of us. But some people are not taught that. They're just taught they can only do this and they don't try anything else. So part of the educational process, when you see someone, it's to not only draw out or to lead out those infinite potential or qualities that are there that you recognize, but also to challenge them by putting resources around them and exposing them to things so they can develop other qualities, because there are certain things that are latent in us as well. We're not born with just one talent. We have many talents. Some talents we may discover 20 years into our life. If you've read biographies about various different people or learned about different people in terms of their journey, you may find out like, dang, Jimi Hendrix picked up a guitar when he was this age? What? Or this person started painting at that age? What? So we all have many different talents. Many different talents. But we have to have the resources and the people around us that's able to lead out or draw out those talents, and to be able to provide the resources as well as challenge and expose us to things that can develop latent talents and abilities that we also have. That's a part of understanding. But that requires knowledge and wisdom. You can't get to understanding without knowledge and wisdom. You can't have a child without a man and a woman. I mean, people try and do all kinds of things, but the natural life process is man, woman, and child. People want to do all kinds of other different things, but that whatever else you're striving to do, that ain't the process. All of us got here, whether it was planned or not, through a certain process. So that is not only the natural process for children, but that's also the natural process for understanding. In order to understand anything, we have to have knowledge and wisdom. So sometimes the frustration or the challenges that we may deal with in terms of other people and having misunderstandings, or us even misunderstanding some things, is because the emphasis needs to be on the knowledge and the wisdom. What is it that I need to know more of in order for me to better understand or appreciate the perspective of where this person is coming from? And then I can rightly judge from that place what they're striving to get me to see. Most people don't want to do that work, though. They just sometimes want to be disagreeable just to be disagreeable. And you have to be conscious and aware of that too, because you have a lot of people out here who are apathetic, and the solution is the problem. You have many people who are like that, and you have to be conscious and aware of it, because sometimes they ain't trying to see nothing. And you can see by the atrophy of the human family, or the detriment of the human family, that we've gone from a place, colloquially speaking, where we used to say, man, I ain't hearing that, to I ain't even trying to hear that. We went from I ain't hearing that to I'm not even trying to hear that. So you have to be conscious of that as well. There's some people who do not want to understand because it's too much work. It's too much work because it requires knowledge and wisdom. Not only do they got to get some facts that they got to stand on, but now once you get them facts, now you're forced to be a critical thinker. You got to rightly judge what it is that you know now in order for you to see something. So when we say 85% are blind, deaf, and dumb, that's exactly what we mean. The first quality of the 85% is blind because some people don't want to see. That is also why one of the miracles that Yeshua or Jesus performed was giving sight to the blind, because that is the primary quality that is of the 85%. Blind, don't want to see. Because the work that is required in order for you to be responsible for that clear mental picture, because you can't unsee it now. You ever see something and you just can't unsee it? And you're like, damn, I can't unsee that. When you're on a journey of growth and development or knowledge of self, you're constantly encountering things that you just can't unsee. And you know, sometimes it's things you like, oh my goodness, dang. And you got to live with that. You know, that's much more difficult than just following a belief system and just going along with whatever somebody's telling you. You ain't really got to see nothing. All you got to do is believe. It don't require no knowledge and wisdom. I just believe that. That's that path really don't require no work. But if you're dedicated to understanding, now here's the thing. Understanding or having a clear mental picture or seeing things for what they are, not what they appear to be, or comprehending things, it doesn't automatically mean that you accept some shit. Because that's how sometimes people interpret understanding. That just because you understand something that you go along with it, that doesn't mean that at all. So you can still maintain your ethics, your integrity, your standard, things that are principles and values to you, and understand what someone else is doing and what they choose to do and where they're at. Matter of fact, if you do understand it, you should have a clear mental picture of how to get out of the way. Because if they're involved in something that is disruptive to your family or your community or other different things that you're invested in terms of striving to bring more beauty to this world, if what they're doing is like that, then you also need to see, how do I need to maneuver around that, navigate around it, and just keep my distance. And that goes for physical family, that goes for community members, that goes for coworkers, that goes for anybody. So understanding that clear mental picture, or seeing things for what they are, not what they appear to be, is also a tool of navigation. It's a navigation tool. And you think about it, how many times have you encountered someone and they just didn't see it coming? Or they just didn't understand what was happening or what was going on because they didn't read the signs. Why didn't they read the signs? Because they didn't have wisdom or discernment, which means they didn't have a foundation or knowledge to be discerning. For example, years ago when they had that big tsunami in Southeast Asia, a lot of people died in that tsunami. But you also had some people who were saved because these people were farmers. And because of their relationship with their livestock, they noticed how their livestock all started to go to higher ground. And they recognized that. They saw their livestock doing that. They were in tune. So as their livestock began to go to higher ground, they followed their livestock as good shepherds and were able to get out of the way from the tsunami. They were able to avoid that tragedy. because they had that understanding. They were able to rightly discern what their livestock was doing because they had knowledge of being shepherds. Life happens the exact same way. Our understanding hinges upon us being discerning enough of the things that we're exposing ourselves to in terms of awareness or consciousness or knowledge. So that is to say, the knowledge that we gain, the things that we strive to learn, is not because we need to sit around and pontificate or to sit and battle people with what it is that we say we know. Like we playing these Jeopardy games with people. That's not what knowledge is for. Knowledge is not to be on social media to try to look like we so smart or intelligent. That's not what knowledge is for. Knowledge or knowing is what leads to wisdom or experience or the ability to rightly discern what it is that we know, to put it into practice, to challenge it, to see its real value and application in everyday life. That's going to give us some sight. We're going to really understand the value of that knowledge when we put it into practice. Just like when it comes to family, you really get to know what family is once a child comes into this world. The exact same thing. So I'm going to go to the chat and respond to some of your comments and questions. Some people are addicted to being victims. True indeed. And that addiction to victimhood, again, if you see that in a person or you understand that that's where a person is at, there's some disconnect or disparity when it comes to knowledge and wisdom. So when you start assessing that person that love to play the victim role, there's something wrong with the knowledge that they received about who they are, about their circumstances. And a lot of times when you assess the type of environment that they grew up in, you can see that sometimes the skills that you may expect out of a person was never there or wasn't reinforced in the environment that they grew up in. I just had to cut my family off today because of understanding. Well, here's the thing. I would say that with family, there's no real way to cut your family off because it's your family. But you can always love your family from a distance or learn the proper way to engage your family members without whatever they're doing becoming disruptive to what it is that you're striving to establish as your place of peace. Because we were all born with family, and that is our training unit when it comes to us being able to forge our own families. So think about that. If we're not able to work it out with our own physical family, and we think that we can just actually cut our own physical family off, what confidence should a person have in us if we're looking to even start a family with them? If they're smart, they're going to be looking at us like, well, where'd you get them skills from? Because you cutting off your own family left and right. I ain't even family. If you willing and able to do that with your own physical family, then what does that mean to me and the potential family that we're striving to establish? So I'm just pointing out that a more appropriate way to look at that is I'm loving my family from a distance. Because you literally cannot cut your family off. They're your family. So it's best to learn how to deal with those challenging relationships with the one that you were given at birth that you will always have, as opposed to trying to learn how to do that with a family that you're striving to create that you can walk away from at any time you want. You can't walk away from your own family, even if we think we can. So learning how to work out those relationships with our physical family It gives us greater understanding and insight on how to work out relationships with the families that we strive to form. So that's important to understand, and it's not to minimize or to take away with some of the challenges that our family members go through. Also an important lens to look at that through is the fact that if this is a physical family member, then we also have the potential to encounter the exact same challenges that we see our physical family going through because we share the same DNA. That could literally be a part of our family history. So being able to better understand some of the challenges that our family goes through, again, without putting ourselves in harm's way, it can give us greater insight into how to deal with those potential challenges that we may encounter in the future, or the children that we have may encounter similar situations that our grandparents or our parents or their aunts or uncles or cousins may have experienced. We would have knowledge of that now, as well as wisdom on how to advise our children or even grandchildren how to navigate similar situations that we saw one of our own family members go through. Now, if we just treat that like I'm just going to cut them off and not talk to them, we're not gaining knowledge and wisdom in order to have that to pass on to our children or our grandchildren or any other person that we're connected to in our family or our community that could benefit from what we saw our own family go through. And obviously this is easier said than done. I'm speaking from a place where I'm not right in that thicket of feeling what that is. I've experienced it and we all experience it in some capacity. But in thinking from a place of clarity and not in the forest and just looking at the trees, but looking at the forest itself, we have to be able to learn from our family's experiences. Some of those experiences may be good, some of them may be bad, some of them may be ugly. But it is of value in terms of understanding, again, being the best part, that we're able to gain knowledge and wisdom from those life experiences. And what I'm sharing is demonstrating what understanding is. That's demonstrating it. Again, you ain't got to accept or go along with whatever somebody's doing. Not saying that, but it is important to understand what people are doing. Even if that understanding allows you to better navigate around the obstacles or challenges that they're creating, or to create a safe distance so that whatever they're into is not disruptive of the peace that you're striving to establish in your place in your life. Some relationships don't need working out. I've cut off family, not everyone, but some. My life has been better since I learned what I needed to. I guess. So I hope you're not interpreting what I'm saying as working things out. I'm speaking about understanding. And the unfortunate part about that is there may come situations where we actually need our physical family. Even if it comes down to transfusions or transplants or any other kind of situation. When family always uses wisdom, knowledge instead of knowledge, wisdom, how can you get them on the proper track when they both create an understanding? Well, that's a great question. Uh, your job is not to get them on track, especially if they're adults. That's not your job as another adult. A person has to get themselves on track. And sometimes a person hasn't exhausted all of their resources before they're willing and open to receive another perspective. Sometimes people continuously strive to find the right way to do wrong. They just gonna keep trying it and think that it's some right way to do wrong. There's nothing you could do about that. And if what you're sharing with a person is the truth and that is not stopping a person, what can possibly stop them? So in the Christian church, right, we learn about trespassing against people, right? And sometimes we could be trespassing against a person that needs to go through something for their own good. So again, 1, 2, 3 is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Sometimes, in order for a person to get to that understanding, they have to go through the wisdom. They have to go through the experience. And instead of us respecting that, sometimes we step in there and we're being disruptive of their learning experience, which doesn't serve them the best support, because what it does is it delays their understanding. And sometimes, I mean, we all want the best for our family and our friends and our community members, those who are close to us. But people also need to want the best for themselves. And there's no way for you to give a person the best part of themselves. That's something that they have to see within them. We can help prompt it. We can create environments and help provide resources. We can do a lot of those different things, but unless it's rooted within a person, that doesn't mean anything. So sometimes we just have to simply get out of the way. If you're doing things in the proper order and sharing knowledge and wisdom for them to get to an understanding, but yet they're doing things the opposite, wisdom, knowledge, and they always got to experience stuff before they get to the point and say, oh, now I know why you said that. Especially people who do that, you have to create some distance, because not only is it frustrating, but it hurts to see a person constantly walking into a brick wall. When you consistently tell them, no, this person is not going to change. They've been behaving like this and they've been abusive for the last 15 years. They're not going to change that. So understanding is having a clear mental picture of the type of relationship that you need to have. You need to create some type of distance. You can't unfamily somebody. You're born with them. But you have to treat it as a learning lesson in order to better navigate and deal with difficult relationships like that. Because even if that's your physical family member, you're going to come in contact with somebody else that has the same kind of personality, has the same type of attitude, the same type of considerations. You would think that they're from the same tribe. But how you going to deal with them if you never even learn the skills of dealing with a person that you were given at birth as a family member? Learn that over there, and it'll be easier for you to be able to deal with a person outside of the family that exhibits the exact same type of qualities. True. That's why a therapist doesn't give all the answers, because a therapist, they don't have the ability to do. They help lead you or guide you so that you could discover your own way. It's your life. So sometimes we just have to get out of the way. We got to get out of the way. Respecting the fact that some people need to learn their own lesson. And sometimes you need to get out of the way because sitting there watching it hurts. Respect that some person has to learn that lesson out of your sight. Because standing there watching them, you just hurting yourself, especially if you already told them. That hurts. So that's also understanding. The ability to know that I'm not going to sit here and watch it. I shared what I needed to share. You heard what I said. I love you. That's why I shared it. But now I got to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. Right, Joy. Mm. And everything I'm saying is not easy. And that's why I said to begin with, this journey of knowledge of self, it requires us to gain understanding. And that's work, because there's things that we deliberately have to learn and know about ourselves, about others, and the world around us. As we gain more knowledge, now we have to rightly discern or judge what it is that we know by practically applying it to our lives. That's what wisdom is. It's experience. That's work. But the best part of all of that is now we have understanding. We can see things for what they are, not what they appear to be. We have the ability to better navigate life now. And we become a resource to others because others may not have that understanding. When you look at Greek mythology, it oftentimes talks about the oracles of Delphi. These oracles of Delphi were women who had sight beyond sight. When you look at our indigenous societies and our classical societies, you always see an emphasis on clairvoyance, or the ability to see beyond where we're presently at, foresight, insight. You always see an emphasis on the third eye, understanding. And people who were able to evolve to the point of having that level of understanding, or that sight beyond sight, or to be an oracle to our people, that was a position that was always held of value. People have always valued those positions within our societies because these people, men and women, were the thought leaders of our people. That understanding is something that always appreciates in time. It never loses its value because it's a combination of knowledge and wisdom. Think about that. As we grow older and we evolve, those who we see who are of the highest value in our communities or in our families are usually the wisest, are the people who know the most, are the people who have the most understanding in our families, in our communities. Those are qualities that consistently appreciate and value. Now, let me show you something. 1, 2, and 3, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. 1, 2, and 3 equals 6, which represents equality. Equality is homeostasis, it's balance, it's fairness, it's mayat, as dark matter shared. It's all of those various different qualities. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about us being born into this physical plane where we have certain gifts and talents that come easy and other things that come with more difficulty. But part of our charge in life is to help bring balance to those qualities. To be able to do the things with ease and then also do the things with difficulty. That balance, or that sense of homeostasis, is what equality is. But in order to arrive at that level of equality, we have to go through knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. We have to gain knowledge of who we are, essentially, intrinsically, inherently. That's why education is important, because education means to draw or lead out. That is a part of knowledge of self, drawing out of us what is there. Being able to develop that infinite potential or that knowledge leads to wisdom, or rightly discerning or judging how to use that knowledge in this world to create and fashion contributions to make this world more beautiful and to address the things that we see that are broken. And then the understanding, or the best part of that, is not only our ability to see things with a clear mental picture, but also to invest in our children, which are going to be the ambassadors of that future, or that equality, or that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we've been able to obtain. The children are vitally important. I hope I didn't lose y'all on what I just shared in terms of 1, 2, and 3, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. 1, 2, and 3 equaling 6. So knowledge, wisdom, and understanding equals equality, balance, harmony, homeostasis, fairness. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding don't mean nothing if it don't lead to that. Because you got a lot of people who claim that they know a lot. You got a lot of people who act like they all wise and everything else. And people even behave as if they understand or see things for what they are. But then when you see their life, you don't see balance. You don't see no harmony. You don't see no homeostasis, no stability, no sustainability. They're not fair in how they deal with themselves, others, and the world around them. You don't see equality. So knowledge, wisdom, and understanding should always lead to that. Everything that I'm sharing with y'all, this ain't got nothing to do with belief. This ain't got nothing to do with something you got to follow. Live life long enough, and you'll be able to understand what it is that I'm sharing. That these are natural life processes that are observed. That's all. And here's the thing about it. What I'm sharing, if you have a religious background or belief system, there is something within that system that coincides with what it is that I'm talking about right now. I don't care if you're a Muslim, I don't care if you're a Christian or if you're Jewish or Hebrew, or it doesn't matter what you identify as. Because these are natural life processes, if there's integrity and truth to what it is that you follow or believe, then what it is that I'm sharing, there will be some consistency in what I'm sharing with what it is that you believe in. And this goes all the way back to what I said originally. In order for anyone to be able to have a clear mental picture or to understand whatever it is just striving to share, you got to have a common foundation or basis. There has to be knowledge that you share that's common. And through that knowledge, you have to be able to share experiences that knowledge is based on, where you were able to rightly discern the value of what it is that you know. That's how you begin to see what the other person is saying. That's how you begin to see. Now, a lot of times I don't sit and build like this. You know, every now and then I come on and I share some of these perspectives with y'all that's tuning in. But for the most part, this is how I live. Everything that I'm sharing, it's applied through my life. This is why we all tune into the frequency. True indeed. So let me see okay, I'm coming up on an hour. I just wanted to come on for a minute and just build with y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you look into the chat, I put a link to my Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters if you're interested in supporting the work that I'm doing. And like I say all of the time, just because I'm sharing these perspectives and everything else, it don't mean nothing if what I'm doing actually in life is not evidence of what it is that I'm saying. So in terms of the Atlantis School, don't just support it because you think I sound good. Don't do that. Look into it first. Research what the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters is. And then when you're comfortable enough, you can support it. But don't just do it just to do it. And I say that because you oftentimes have a lot of people who create platforms and they do a bunch of talking, but there's no evidence at all of what it is that they're actually doing in life. They just got a bunch of words. And those words are not action orientated. They don't have a plan of action to it. And it's important that anybody that you're supporting, your family, your friends, your community members, that there's evidence of what it is that you're actually invested in. There's just too many people that's out here. That's all they doing is talking. And we all got something to say. We all talking. And it's unfair if you're supporting somebody that's doing a little bit more talking than you are. But there's no evidence of what they're actually doing for other people. They're not of no real service to anybody. So I say all of that to say again, research my Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters. It's a school-age, early childhood learning center and after-school program that I established here in my city. I'm actually sitting in it right now. Uh, and I've been developing over some time. And like I said, you can go to the link that I put in the chat to get some more information on what I'm doing with the school. And I would always appreciate your support. So we're coming up on an hour. I appreciate y'all for just taking the time to tune in briefly. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, I'm putting my email in the chat. It's atlantisbuild@gmail.com. And I appreciate y'all. So have a good night and peace.